Hello, how are we? My name is Sudsy. Welcome to the channel Sudsy Talks Rugby. Wanted to make this video on defence in 2024 for international teams, just a bit of a retrospect before we get into the international calendar coming up pretty soon in 25, starting with the Six Nations. Decided to record this bit of the video before I went off and have done any of the research because wanted to see if I had any good opinions on it. Basically, it's just going to be very simple. Going to calculate how many points you conceded divided by the amount of games you had to work out how many points you in general conceded in a game. The predictions I have, which I'm going to make now, are thinking Ireland number one, just through the fact that they're a good Six Nations. Conceded a few points down in South Africa in the internationals, won one, lost one, but both games conceded kind of mid-20s from what I remember. And then Autumn wasn't great, but yeah, didn't concede that many points. He conceded about 28 or something to New Zealand, but the others were under 20 points, except maybe the Fiji game. Can't quite remember off the top of my head. Then other contenders I have are going to be South Africa. They're South Africa. They're always kind of be up the top of any of the statistics. Great defense, world class defense is as they're well known for. I know they're adding a lot of layers to their attack now, but their defense is very, very solid. I just think they might have had a slightly harder year than Ireland. That's why I think Ireland might pip them. Like playing New Zealand twice, playing Ireland twice. You're going to end up shipping a few points. So that's why maybe they might rank just below Ireland. And then third, it's going to go with Scotland. They had an okay Six Nations, but they also had a kind of a pretty easy summer. They were playing a lot of teams out in America, so I wouldn't say they shipped too many points there. Then their November series was actually pretty decent. I don't think they shipped too many points. I know they lost the game to South Africa, but I don't think it will affect their rating overall. So they're going to be top three. I'm going to go Ireland, South Africa, Scotland, and I'm going to go off now, see if anything I thought was correct. Right, so I've gone off, done the work, but I thought just before we look into who the best defence, we'd have a look at the top 10 as it stands end of 24 going into 25. A few things might change during the Six Nations. In Ireland beat France by a good amount and Scotland by a good amount. There might be a chance for them to move up against South Africa. I know we're playing France at home, so we won't get the extra points, but I think we're playing Scotland away. So they should, the Scotland will be ranked a bit higher just because they're at home. So we might be able to get enough points off those two if we beat them, first of all, to take over South Africa. But anyway, as it stands, South Africa first, Ireland second, New Zealand third, France, Argentina, Scotland, England, Australia, Fiji, Italy. Thought it was interesting. 5 from the Northern Hemisphere, 5 from the Southern Hemisphere, which is kind of how you'd kind of want to see World Rugby ranked. And for a bit, until you reach 6 and 7, it does go south, north, south, north, south, north, which is pretty cool. So it's good to see people from all around the globe are playing the game very, very well. So anyway, with that out of the way, just going to jump straight into it. And here we go. Just going to say it because you can all see now. I was wrong. It was close, but I was wrong. South Africa had the best defence of 2024, followed very closely by Ireland, only 0.3 in it, and then Scotland a little bit further back, but who I predicted would be in third. So yeah, I'm going to start from the bottom, work our way up essentially. So let's start with Australia. On average conceding 30.2 games a game, 30.2 points a game. And 2 places down from their world ranking position. In 2024 they played 13 games, which they won 6 of, so nearly half their games they won, which is not bad. However, when you break it down to when they're playing teams in the top 10, so teams on the list in the top 10 in the world, they only won 2 of them. So when you're looking at the season as a whole, 4 of the games they won, a lot of them were against Wales, who are 11th, so in and around where they should be, who they should be playing and beating. So they only won 2 against top 10 teams. So not what you want to see, but they did finish the year pretty strongly with a great win over England, which is very impressive. And they also put in a very impressive performance against Ireland. I think Joe Schmidt might have been targeting that game because he's going up against Farrell for the Lions tour that's coming up. But look, go the end of the season kind of gives me a lot more hope for this Lions tour moving forward. Right, on to Fiji, who on average conceded 27.8 points a game, and they are actually ranked in this list as they are in the world rankings, which is pretty good. It means their defense is about ninth in the world, and they are ninth in the world. They themselves played 11 games and won 8 of them, so a very, very solid year for Fiji. And yeah, very solid year for Fiji. But however, if you just break it down to top 10 games, they won none. They played 3 of them. They won none of the top 10 games. So Fiji did a very good year, but when it comes to playing the top of the top, they're still not getting the job done, unfortunately. So they need to kind of buck up and start getting some wins there, or they need to play a few more games, maybe against Wales, Italy, that kind of area, just to slowly build into it. But they kind of remind me of Fiji, remind me of Italy from a few years ago. Kind of flirting with the top 10 all the time, but getting very, very much better. And especially, I've never remembered Fiji being so strong a year after World Cup. Usually that's when they tend to dip quite a bit. They always show up for the World Cup, but this is usually when they tend to dip. So yeah, that's Fiji. Moving on to Argentina. 3 places away from their world ranking position and conceding on average of 27.5 points a game. This year they played 12 and won 6, so they won half their games, which is pretty good. For Argentina, had a decent rugby championship. They beat South Africa at home, which very impressive, very enjoyable game to watch. Couldn't manage to get over the line against Ireland, although I think they could have. I think if they were playing that game at home and it was down to that score, I reckon they would have gotten over the line, but couldn't do it in Dublin, so they didn't manage to win that game. But again, put out a great performance. They showed a few different attacking types in that game. Like, they got the flashy backs, but they also can just go down the middle, and they made some good ground. Out of the 12 games they played, 11 of them were against the top 10, and they won 5. So their whole year, solid, very solid from Argentina. Very excited to see what they do over the coming years with their the new coach back. I've heard tell of it being a lot more like the old Argentina, where everyone gets together and it's such a big celebration that everyone's home. So very excited to see that moving forward. Anyway, into 7th, 3 places above their world rank position, is Italy, conceding on average 25 points a game. Which is okay for Italy, pretty good. Their Six Nations is good win against Scotland, and a draw against France, which I thought was mightily impressive. This year they played 11 games and won 5 of them, so nearly half of their games. But when you break down the top 6, so they only played 6 against the top 10 teams, and they won 1 of them, which was against Scotland, but they also had that draw against France, so maybe we'll call it 1.5 wins. Although an Italy draw against France, I would consider more of a win for Italy than just half a game. Moving quickly on to England in 6th. They're 1 position up from their actual ranking, conceding on average 24.1 points a game. So, only conceding a point less than Italy a game, which I don't think is where England fans want England to be, especially when England has just so much raw talent in the country. It's a massive rugby playing country. They have a lot of teams, a lot of talent. I just think Borthwick plays too different a style to what the clubs play at the moment. Maybe he'll give them a bit more free rein to play a bit of proper rugby that they play in the Premiership for the international team. But yeah, at the moment, internationally, they're not living up to what their clubs are showing, in my opinion. They played 12 games this year, won 5, lost 3 games technically in a row to New Zealand. They lost the 2 games over there and the 1 game at home. So they couldn't manage to shore up a win at home against them, which would have made the 2 close losses out there feel a little bit better. Just through the fact that, like, losing in New Zealand, no one's going to shame you for it, but when you could have beaten them at home and you didn't, that was not what you want to see. They seem to be in games a lot and then losing them, like that Australia game in November. Yeah, couldn't get it done. They won that game, in my opinion, twice and then lost it 3 times, unfortunately for them. They did, however, beat Ireland in the Six Nations. So, shows they can do it. Shows they have the talent to do it. So I don't see why they're not doing it more often. Because when you look at, they won 5 games out of 12, but they played 9 games against the top 10, only won 2 of them. So not what you want to see. Although the Ireland one was impressive, the 3 losses to New Zealand do sting. The loss to South Africa stings, and I'd say that loss to Australia really, really stings if you're an English supporter. But I know you can never rule them out. The Six Nations coming up, I'd say they could be pretty mighty, especially if Borthwick lets them play rugby like they do in the Premiership, because that Premiership is one of the funnest leagues to watch because it is just pure action everywhere. Tries after tries after tries. I don't think I've seen a low scoring game in the Premiership yet. Anyway, moving on to 5th, we have France, who are 1 position down from their international ranking, conceding on average 23.6 points a game. So not conceding that much less than England. That much fewer than England. They are, what, 0.5, half a point a game conceding less than England. So it's still something, still ahead. But anyway, they played 11 games and won 8 of them this year, which is pretty impressive, winning that amount of games. But when you look at the top 10, they played 8, won 5. Again, pretty impressive. So I think their games just must be pretty tight, or their games are going to high points conceding. They lost to Ireland by a lot at the start of Six Nations. Then they went out to South America for a good bit and had pretty decent performances out there, beat Argentina. And then when they came home, beat Argentina. And then their most impressive performance, I thought, this year was when they beat New Zealand at home there at the end. A very good game of rugby to watch, to be fair. But yeah, so France, pretty decent year. They'll be looking to kick on for the Six Nations. Excited to see how it all turns out for them. You know, the French. I used to be able to say who knows what French team will show up, but you can't say that anymore. You know they're going to be solid, they're going to be big, they're going to hit you hard, and they're going to give it to the flashy backs. And it's just a case of if you can contain it. Moving on to 4th place, we have New Zealand, who are on average conceding 19.3 points a game. When they're one position down from their world rankings. They played 14 games this year, which I think is the most out of any of the teams in the top 10. So they're definitely getting their games in. And they won 10 of them. So 10 out of 14 I would consider pretty good. Yeah, conceding an average of 19.2 points a game. First team under 20 a game, so that's fewer than 3 converted tries a game. So that's pretty solid defence, especially with the new coach coming in. There was a bit at the start of the year where I was a bit worried about them with everything going on, but Razor seems to have gotten everything to shape, and I would say their middle to end of year was pretty strong. Beat England 3 times, put up a decent, very, very good contest, not even decent, very good contest in the Rugby Championship, and beat Ireland in Dublin, which they hadn't done in a couple of years, beating Ireland at home. So I'd say they're very happy with how their year ended anyway. Right, on to Scotland. In 3rd, 3 places up from their world ranking positions, conceding just slightly under what New Zealand are with 19 points. They played 13 games this year and won 9 of them, which is impressive. A good win return rate. I'd say they're all pretty happy. Finn Russell probably delighted with himself, helping steer Scotland towards it. And I would say at the moment, they're the team I would be most worried about playing if I were Ireland or France. Well, Ireland or France, essentially, because I think this year the Six Nations is going to come down to Ireland, France or Scotland. Scotland are doing very well. They've a brilliant 12-13 partnership at the moment. Finn Russell's always doing Finn Russell things. Their pack, I think, is about as strong as ever. So they've everyone fit and healthy. They could be very, very, very hard to keep contained. They had a great win against Australia there, kind of put them back in their place, kind of crushing the dreams of the Australians, repeating the acts of whenever it was coming up when no one gave them a chance and beating the 4 teams that they played again this year. Fortunately not to be done for them, but yeah, Scotland had a pretty good year in my opinion. When you break it down though, they played 7 of their 13 games against top 10 teams, only won 3 of them. Their Six Nations wasn't great. They lost Italy, lost Ireland, they beat England, I can't remember the French result, and they probably beat Wales. Yeah, so they only won 3 out of the top 10, so they're going to want to start putting those performances that they know they can do against the big teams and just start winning these games. Like they've always, I feel like every year we're saying they're close to being there, but you know, we'll have to wait and see. Anyway, into 2nd place, I wrongly predicted Ireland, conceding an average 17.2 points a game. They played 11, won 8. So, pretty good. Lost to England, Six Nations, lost to South Africa in the Rugby Championship in South Africa, and then lost to New Zealand at the end of the year. I'd say the New Zealand and England losses hurt the most. You know, losing to England to lose the Grand Slam, then you losing to New Zealand in Dublin definitely wasn't great. Losing 1 game out of 2 in South Africa, I'd say they'd be pretty happy. And they won what I would consider the more important game, which is the 2nd game, because it's a lot more fun to win the 2nd game and tie up the competition, especially for a travelling team to go out and celebrate. Yeah, so I think Ireland had a very good year. Towards the end of the year, though, don't know if offensively they're all that anymore. Defensively, I think they're going to be very solid. I think with Leinster as well, the way they're playing at the moment, their defence is going to be very solid. But Offensively, not so much anymore. Leinster's offense isn't really kicking on. They're giving away a lot of penalties, which is a lot more punishing, I think, in international rugby than it is as club rugby. And they're just not scoring a lot of points. They're defending really well, but they're not scoring a lot of points. So hopefully we can come into the Six Nations and start scoring some tries. That would be great, because it's going to be hard to just defend against the likes of Scotland, France, England, and even Italy and Wales. If you're only defending the whole game, you might not be able to hold them out just enough, essentially. So be very excited to see how it all kicks on in the Six Nations. Then to our number one spot, which I probably should have predicted, because when are they not number one? We have South Africa. Played 13 games this year, won 11, which I think is their best win rate, or tied best win rate in a year ever, if I remember correctly. So yeah, very impressive. Conceded on average 16.9 points a game, so only conceded slightly under what Ireland were conceding, but that's all you need. You only need to win a game by a point. You only need to be conceding 0.3 less of points per game to be on top of this list. When you look at just top 10 games, they played 10 of them. So 13 out of the 10 games were against the top 10, and they won 8. The only games they lost were the game to Ireland in South Africa and the game to Argentina in Argentina. So I'd say, other than the loss to Ireland at home, well, I suppose they'd probably be pretty upset considering how they went out and thrashed Argentina the next week. That they were probably pretty beat up about that loss in Argentina. But yeah, that's it. That's the list essentially at the moment. The whole international. I also put together another list just of, I took out all the games where they weren't playing against another top 10 team. So I took out the likes of South Africa, Portugal. Took out all those results and thought we'd see what that looks like. So when people are playing, who are supposed to be in the same level as them, we have a few changes. We see Fiji drop like a stone to conceding 52 points a game. As I said, they didn't win a single game against the top 10, and they played 3 of them, and they conceded on average 52 points a game. So yeah, Fiji, great year, but they got to start putting it up to the big dogs and start making themselves a proper force to be reckoned with. They just have to play them more often. Like, they played 11 games or something this year, and only 3 were against top 10. They got to be playing top 10 teams all the time. That's how Italy got better, playing the Six Nations year in, year out. You're always against the best. It makes you better. So yeah, that's essentially Fiji get there though. They have pretty magic ball players, pretty freak athletes, especially like even looking at their sevens team. Nearly went and won the Olympics. So they just have to go out and really start just playing top 10 teams all the time, use their athleticism, use their size, and just get going. Australia are about the same with Italy, Argentina, England, France. Scotland drop a position to New Zealand, which is kind of back to what I was thinking at the start of the game. At the start of the video, I knew they had a good few easier opponents for their summer kind of part of the season. So I'm not too surprised they've dropped a bit. Then the only other really thing to note is the gap only widens between South Africa and Ireland. I thought it might shrink the gap a little bit. I thought it might give Ireland a chance. But yeah, even if you take out the likes of South Africa, Portugal, everything, it's still a sizable, it's a larger gap than it was. Now 0.8 points a game, they're conceding less. So yeah, they're the lists. Let me know what you think down in the comments. Leave a like, subscribe if you like this kind of stuff, and I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.